Welcome back to episode 9 of Lift You Up. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham. And on today's episode, I'm going to introduce you to a fellow Cane. But before I do, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe on YouTube and connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to see you there. But today you're going to meet Jessica Marcarelli. She is a fitness professional and she really knows her stuff. She went from high intensity workouts, which is something we had in common when we went to college together at the University of Miami. We were even on dance team together. But after an injury, she transitioned to teaching yoga and bar classes. She's also talking about how she thinks the fitness industry is changing during this time as we are all dealing with coronavirus. Our physical, mental, and emotional health is not just a want, it is a need for happy lives and prosperous businesses. Lift You Up is the podcast where we share inspiring health stories from business owners who are fulfilling their purpose to live their healthiest lives and helping you do the same. From former TV reporter to marketing entrepreneur and content creator, I care about sharing stories that matter and stories that connect us. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham, your health and wellness matchmaker. Well, I'm super excited to be here today with Jessica Marcarelli, who is a good old friend of mine from the U. If you've been watching this show, you'll get to see, or if you haven't already seen, that I keep bringing on my fellow Canes, which is something I love to do. So, Jessica, thanks for being here with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Well, first of all, I'll say we know each other from University of Miami, but we both ended up being on the Sensations dance team. I feel like at points we were both obsessed with like running the loop and being super active. And now, you know, your love of being active and fitness really ended up morphing into your career and what you're doing now. So I want to learn a little bit more about your story, kind of where you started and where this passion for what you do came from.
Yeah, sure. My love for fitness, I think, really didn't even come until college around the time that we met. That's really when I first was introduced to like what working out, you know, what we would traditionally think of like spending more time weightlifting and on the treadmill and all that. That's really when it started to come in. And I think back to that too. And I think that at first it ended up being almost like kind of a little damage control, you know, coming into college and gaining weight and learning like how to navigate, like now I'm like having to feed myself and like how do I fit this into like what I want my life to be. And so it's funny to think of like first it came about that way, and then I think that working it in and having a love for our fitness center just grew as we got older.
Yeah. And I mean, it definitely helps that we were going to college in a city like Miami, where I feel like people are so conscious about, you know, being healthy, how they look, exercising. It's definitely much more part of the culture than it is in other parts of the country too.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think that when it initially, you know, came up is again, like I said, like, you know, gaining weight and like trying to figure out like, how do I navigate this new world? And it kind of became for me almost like it started as almost an unhealthy obsession, you know, where I'm like spending way too much time in the gym, like more than what a normal person would be able to do in like the real world. And so, you know, after college, like trying to balance that, and then I got really into running because being a broke post grad, that's the only thing I could afford was to run. So I got really into running, and actually from that is when I got introduced to Lululemon. And Lululemon at the time, they were just starting off. Now it's like such a well-known Canadian, you know, athletic apparel brand, but they were just starting off and were just opening up their first store in Miami. And so I kind of got introduced to them, and I started working with Lululemon for a couple years out of college. But that's actually what got me more into then group fitness classes. And that was kind of around the time that there was a boom of, you saw more boutique fitness style classes, you know, more spinning studios were popping up and that kind of thing. And so that was really what started to introduce me. And I think too, that was like what was able to keep my a little workout obsession going, because then, you know, we're taking classes all around town, and that was kind of part of the gig, is that you get to know all the trainers and teachers. And so that's what introduced me to more of like spinning and Pilates and yoga and even Bikram classes, even CrossFit classes. and back then too, I started off as being more into like the high intensity, like the CrossFits and that kind of thing. More than the yoga. I think the CrossFit, and I also think personally because it was still something that gave me quicker results physically. Like I felt like I noticed a difference right away, and so I think that's kind of what really developed my love and appreciation for that and that feeling. It's something that I think a sense of accomplishment that you feel, that rush of endorphins after a high intensity class like that.
Yeah, I think we've both been kind of similar in that way. And as far as like really liking the high intensity, I mean, we kind of went through that with a week of boot camp. I will tell all of you who are watching this how we spent like 6-7 days of boot camp preparing to be on the University of Miami Sensations dance team, which was pretty much like 12 hours a day of madness of just not stopping. So I always was under the impression that, if it wasn't painful or like a puke worthy workout, like I wasn't really working out.
I think that once you start like working it into like your work day too, right? You're like, I only have this amount of time, like maybe it's a minute or two or an hour or two rather, to get from your commute to your workout and then to get home and shower and make dinner or go to work or wherever it fits into your timeline. And I think that a lot of times we're like, we just want to get the most out of it in that time that we have. So, and I think that's where, high intensity stuff really feels effective.
Right. So you were mainly into high intensity workouts. And I know what you do now is more bar and yoga.
Yoga was also for me then. I was a power yoga and that was it. Like, 'cause same thing. I wanted to get a sweat. I wanted to get a workout. I wanted to feel like I made the most of my time. After that, I was with Exhale and then I was kind of recruited. I had an opportunity to go work for a medical office. And that's the first time that I feel like I was at like what we would consider like a normal job. I had like a normal desk job, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And this was like really the first time I was in that position. And when I had joined there, I also agreed to do my yoga teacher certification. So I started learning to teach power yoga again. But also then I was starting this desk job and it just wasn't right for me. I think maybe it was too going into something that was so different for me. But I just knew I didn't feel healthy. This was probably like the heaviest I had been to, and I was someone that was still working exercise into my day. That was something that continued with me through all of my journeys, is that was like the one non-negotiable, like, is that I'll work out. I was sitting at a desk all day. I was unhappy at my job. I'd go to CrossFit at night. And then I was learning to teach yoga, and then eventually did start teaching yoga. And first I'll say that when I started teaching yoga, that was like, it was shocking to me that I was getting paid for it, because it was something that I really realized how much I enjoyed doing. Like, I'm like, wow, I don't really care if you pay me or not. Because I was like, this is something I like wanted to do and wanted to show up for, which I think number one is just like such a clear sign. And then the other part of that too is with the CrossFit, I actually ended up bulging a disc in my back. And I just say with CrossFit because it happened while I was doing something there, but I think it was just a recipe of all the things adding up. It was a lot of flexion on my spine, and at some point my back just kind of gave out. From that, I started to go to physical therapy, and my physical therapist was actually like, you can't work out. And I'm like, okay, but what do you mean? Like, what can I do? Because not working out was like not an option. In retrospect, you're like, oh, maybe all the signs really were there. Like, that's what that pain was, or that, you felt a little discomfort and your body was trying to tell you, but you didn't know what it meant and like how to listen. And so my physical therapist eventually let me do the elliptical, and he let me do bar classes. And so then I started getting really into bar classes, because it was really the only form of exercise I could do, but it really resembled so many of the exercises that I would do at a physical therapy session. I was then approached again by Exhale, and they had an opening for the position that I am in currently, which is to oversee and manage their now fitness program rather than just the sales piece. So now for the past 3 years, I've been teaching bar and yoga classes, about 10 classes a week, and then overseeing their entire fitness teachers and class schedule and all of that at the South Beach location.
Now, going back a little bit to your injury, were you in a lot of pain at that time?
I knew that something was wrong, like when it happened. And of course, we're the type that we're like, I'm going to push through it. Of course, I finished my workout that day.
Yeah.
In my mind, I was like, I'm listening by like going with a lighter weight, but really I probably should have like stopped a long time ago. Yeah, there was a lot of discomfort, and it took, probably took like a solid 6 months until I really felt like I was, at first it's like even bending down to pick something up, you're just like, whoa, like, and your body remembers things too, so it's like, it really puts the brakes on the second that it feels something that like might be familiar to that again. And to be honest, it still is kind of like an everyday thing, because again, your body is just always in this state of like protection. And so the more that I can strengthen, core muscles and those types of things, and like give my body what it needs to kind of rebalance everything out, then I really feel the difference.
Okay, so at this point now, you can do yoga, you can do bar classes and teach them. Is high intensity out the window?
It's not out the window, but I probably won't ever look at it the same. And maybe it's with age too, it's like with age and experience. And I think that everybody's bodies are just different and they're built differently. And now that I've, experienced really great results too from a bar class, and I supplement it with, other cardio, and I still run, and I like to do spinning and things like that too. But yeah, I think it's like all about just having a balance and finding like a balance that works for you, and not feeling like you have to be stuck on one, like I didn't need to define myself as being like just one of these things, but like really, if you can keep shocking your body by incorporating all these different things, then you're going to find all the same results.
We talked about the injury. You were in a job that you were just like, okay, this is not right for me. And you could feel it, you knew. And then you transitioned into this role that you've been in for the last 3 years with Exhale. And now you're all of a sudden teaching these classes. How are you feeling at that moment? Was it a natural transition for you?
It felt like, and I hate to be like cliche with it, but it just felt like something that I was meant to do, that I was right. You do get a lot of feedback in the moment from people, because like, if people are coming back to take your class, or like if they're like stopping at the front desk to like let them know how they felt about it. At the end of the day, like I'm not doing it for me, I'm doing it for other people. So if I can see that people are getting something out of it, then that's just what I'm gonna get the most out of it. And that's where I feel like that I felt like I was able to contribute something to other people, and for them to see a value in their time. Again, like if you get this 2-hour window of your day to like squeeze your workout in, or whatever it is, like that people choose it to spend, with me, that's like a big responsibility on my end to deliver something that's they're going to get the most, bang for their buck.
So were you seeing that positive reinforcement right away, where people were like, what were they saying about your classes? Were they coming back? Obviously they were.
I think it's funny. I'm the type of person that I'm just a perfectionist, and like I would never, I made sure that I was like as set up and prepared as I could possibly be. And I was always kind of like, just fake it until you make it, right? Like no one else in that room needs to know that this is the first class I've ever taught, like maybe tell them after the fact so that they go a little easier on you. But like, I really wasn't announcing how new I was. So then I'm like, people have no idea. And I could have been doing this for the past 10 years and it would all be, they would never know the difference. So I think that like, if you're just able to get up and show up and like, and I did a lot of research, and I really studied to decide, what kind of teacher and how I wanted to be for my students.
How did you see your body respond, or even maybe some of those who took your classes respond to yoga and bar versus the high intensity? Did it start to change your mind too about how, your body responded to that type of workout, a different workout?
It did. And, it's something too that I think that number one, I tell people that I think bar is like running. I feel like people don't walk in and immediately love bar every time. And it's kind of the same thing I think with like when people go for a run. Like a lot of people, unless you're like an avid runner, aren't like, I love running. But I think the more that you do it, then the easier in a sense, like easier it gets for your mind to like understand what's expected. And then the easier you get and the better you get, then the more results you see from it. So it's kind of one of those things, right? It's like how, like it takes a little consistency. It has changed my perception on it. And I think that you just have to know what you're willing to put into it. Again, it's not going to be like maybe the immediate result or like feeling of you're going to throw up like you would get from a boot camp or like a HIIT class, but know that the results are coming in different ways and in terms of like still strengthening and toning. And I think it's so safe for everyone to do, and I think that there's something to be said about that.
Right. Because, eventually over the years, and I even saw this myself, someone who used to run or spend 45 minutes on a Stairmaster or even just dancing as long as we did, you start to feel it in your knees. And I've had some knee injuries, and it's difficult to come back from those. So I think a lot of people, if you're active and doing a lot of that high intensity workout, whatever it was at some point, have experienced an injury. So it sounds like this is a good option to continue getting a good workout and strengthening that can work for people with injuries.
Yeah, and I think right? it really helps with like more stabilization type exercises too. And I think like as you age, the more that you can support like all your joints, the better. And the more that you can learn to balance and with aging is so huge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I can obviously see the excitement and the passion that you have for what you do. And then over the last few months, we're dealing with coronavirus that is just rapidly changing every industry and everything needing to move online. Tell me where you are as far as with fitness and this whole change that's happening right now.
You just see everything start to switch over to like this virtual platform, and like all together as like a community of fitness professionals, we really had to figure out how to navigate. And I think you see people kind of coming together because it's like, do you go on Instagram? Do you go on Zoom? Like what worked for you? Like, why'd you get kicked off? Like you see people like trying to learn and figure out how to make like their own business work in a time that group fitness is just not an option. For me, like I started doing some classes on Sundays. It's during a time that I would normally teach an in-studio class. And I've seen it's honestly been very well received. Like I get so many really nice messages of people that appreciate it, and like it provides them with that kind of schedule, that normalcy that they're used to having. But it's such a strange time. And I think that it just goes to show like how adaptable we are, and that, any little curveballs, like people are going to find a way. And I think that health and wellness, now more than ever, like people are valuing their health and like staying healthy. And so there are ways that fitness is going to like obviously live on, and it just might look a little bit different, in the coming months, and who knows where it goes from here.
Well, what do you think about that? Where do you think it goes, or where would you like to see it go? Because, right, this is your livelihood, right? You have to think about that going forward. How can I continue to do what I do? Or, where do I see the industry going as a whole? Obviously, like, there will be a time when we will be back in group fitness classes. But maybe there's a way that this continues to be incorporated in that. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I want to get your thoughts on where you maybe see things going, or where you would like to see them go.
The thing about group fitness is having that collaboration and that energy, and there's something to be said about that. But I think that people now are realizing that they don't necessarily have to go to a class to get that same, just to get the workout in. For teachers and instructors and trainers, it kind of got people out of their comfort zones a little bit. And like, at least for me, like I wasn't the type that would ever be like broadcasting my classes online for the world to see. And now here we are. And so I think that like just getting over this initial hump, and for people to try to figure out like where their place is, that I think that we'll continue to see a lot more of this.
What do you say, I don't know, maybe words of advice? I know you have a community of fitness professionals who are kind of, all in this with you. Obviously their routine is different. They're not going into work. income is down or not there at all, is there anything that keeps you going, or something you would say to somebody else who's just kind of, in this place of uncertainty?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much out there that shows that, movement is it's medicine. I think that people get a lot out of, in terms of preventing chronic diseases and boosting your immune system. And there's so many things that benefit movement. And I think that we now more than ever have more time on our hands, that we're not commuting, we're not going to the office. I totally recognize that people are out of work right now too, and it's a difficult time, and maybe, don't have the budgets to pay for boutique pricing classes anymore. But there are so many options for everyone. And I think that, I've even heard of people taking like just YouTube yoga classes. I think it's just like having an awareness and using the resources around you to kind of find out something. But there's truly something for everyone. Like, you can find a way. And I think that now, when we have maybe a lot more time on our hands, that it's just trying to find like where the priorities fall.
Yeah. So for those who are, working at home, maybe they don't have equipment, but they're interested in some of the things that you mentioned as far as strengthening and that stabilization. Are there a couple tips or something that you can offer the audience, that they can start working on right now? Anything you would tell them to do?
Yeah, I mean, all of like my bar classes are total body weight. We don't use anything. It's all your body weight. There's so many different types of push-ups that you can do, of like squats and lunges and things like that are just going to help even that, like controlled movements, but use it as a way to build strength in your body. Even like holding planks are such amazing things, just to build your core, to build the strength in your chest. There's just a lot of things that you can do, and you really don't need like all the bells and whistles that like were nice to have before, but now we're finding a way to just do it without it.
So planks, how long would you say someone should hold a plank if they're going to do that once a day or twice a day?
Build it up to a minute.
Okay.
Start where you start, and then clock yourself, start a timer, see how long you can hold it, and then keep building, every day. Try it again and see how far you get.
Okay. And keep going from there. What, up to 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes?
Yeah. And then once you get in I would do a forearm plank. Okay. So like your forearms down, and then you can do a side planks to get more of the side of the waist. And it's also going to help. Like, the thing with planks and push-ups too, is that you can really make it total body. And so, engaging like your core, maybe you start your push-ups with your knees down and find a way to modify for how your body is today, and then know that there's so many ways that you can then increase it. You can lift one leg off, you can balance with one hand, like whatever it is, just find a way to like keep your body guessing, keep your body getting a little bit stronger, like find a new way to challenge it. Because if you're in that plank and then all of a sudden 60 seconds feels easy, then try 90 seconds on, and see how long it takes you to build up to it.
Okay, so if you need a little bit of instruction, though, and help with some of these strengthening exercises, Jessica does Sunday classes, right?
Yes.
So tell people how they can find these classes and how they can connect with you.
Yeah, right now I'm posting them on my Instagram, just on my live. It's at 10:30 on Sundays, but I'm open for questions or for comments or for anything at all. If you're looking for any sort of help or assistance, just notes on tips on where to get started, let me know. My Instagram is Jess Marcarelli.
Awesome. We'll make sure to include that below in the show notes. Jessica, is there anything else that you want to share that you feel like I did not ask you?
As a whole, we just have to start, just to start somewhere. I think that we all get in our heads, and so often I hear people that are like, well, once I start working out, then I'm going to come take your class, or then I'm going to get the trainer. They really have this idea that they have to start somewhere first before they can do those things. But the reality is just start, just do something, like one thing a day, and notice, maybe you're doing some jumping jacks before you brush your teeth at night or something. Just find a way to add something in, and then notice how you can feel, how it makes you feel, and then start something else the next day, add on a little bit more.
I think that's a good point. And I think sometimes people say that, and I know I've been there myself. where maybe the gym or a certain class doesn't feel inviting because it's new or it's different, or they don't feel like they're there yet, or comparing themselves to others. So I'm wondering if too, that this new online world, or with just more people, teaching classes or working with clients, and training online, that it will maybe make it a little bit more inviting for people to learn that way.
I would really hope so. I would love that. And I think that because there is something really intimidating about walking into a anywhere for the first time, and like, if you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what to expect, you don't know anyone there, which also makes a good point of like just having someone to hold you accountable to it. And which, if it's in person, maybe that's someone that's going with you, or if it's at home, maybe it's someone else that's going to try it and take the class with you at the same time, also their first time. You can share thoughts afterwards, bounce ideas off. I think that it goes a long way just to have someone else to share an experience with. And maybe that's even the trainer, and I think that like having things virtual gives people the opportunity that like, you can jump on, you can follow me in advance, you can know, a little bit about me. And then maybe if you come take my class, then you're going to feel like a little more comfortable around me.
Yeah, no, I love that. So we'll make sure to follow Jessica, connect with her on her Instagram. She's going live Sundays at 10:30, and all that information will be below in the show notes. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you. Thanks, Tamika.
It's time to work on some strengthening and stabilization, and Jessica Marcarelli is definitely the right person to do that with. Go ahead, check her out on one of her free live Instagram Sunday classes and connect with her. All of her information is below in the show notes. If you like this episode, I would love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Tamika Bickham. I look forward to hearing from you. And I'd also love to hear your feedback, your honest feedback. So leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next time, I'll see you next week. Stay happy, stay healthy.